Much of the high-profile political coverage leading up to the midterms, including our own, is focused on House, Senate, and gubernatorial races. But there are thousands of contests lower on the ballots, including state legislative races. A recent New York Times report highlights the importance of those seats and the implications that will have for the future of American democracy. No small thing. Nick Corasaniti is the author of that piece, and he joins me now. He's a domestic correspondent covering national politics for the New York Times. Nick, why in this cycle are state legislative races more consequential than they might have been before?
Well, there's two main reasons, but they both kind of originate with the Supreme Court. State legislatures, have always been very critical to American lives. They control a lot of state budgets, which impacts taxes and property taxes and school funding and issues like that. But because of recent decisions, they've taken on a more critical role in a lot of the issues that are animating American politics right now, from access to abortion to gun laws to voting laws. And so you have these state legislative bodies really able to shape kind of what national political policy is trying to do, especially with so much deadlocked in Congress in a 50-50 Senate. But there's also a looming Supreme Court case called the independent state legislature theory that's coming up this term. And that has the potential to really significantly alter the role of state legislatures and give them nearly unchecked authority over federal elections. And that comes with a whole host of powers that we haven't yet really seen realized in modern elections. So because of all those decisions, state legislative races are just so critical this year.
So I want to get to the independent state legislature theory in a minute, but it sounds like what you're saying is state legislatures have always been really important. It's just some more certain people are waking up to them in a way because of these nationalized issues. So when that often happens, what then flows is a lot of money, a lot of interest group focus and participation. Have these local races, which hadn't necessarily felt the inflation of spending that we see at the national level, are they starting to get that kind of flood of money and attention that we associate more with national politics?
Well, they're certainly getting the money, and I think the people who are spending the money are hoping that'll bring the attention. But if you just look at the television airwaves right now, when the story came out, there was about $100 million had been spent on television advertising, roughly equal between Republicans and Democrats in state legislative races across the country. And if you were to look back 2 years ago, that number was at about 80 million. And that was during a presidential year when often interest is just higher in politics in general. So that's a pretty significant increase in one of the most key indicators in how much money is coming into politics. But there's also outside groups that are investing incredibly heavily in ways we've never seen before. There's a group called the States Project, which is a Democratic super PAC / outside group. And they've pledged to spend $60 million in just 5 states. So that's an exorbitant amount, just, even if they were weighing in congressional races. And this is going into state legislative races, which rarely command, much higher than low 7 figures. On the Republican side, the arm of the Republican National Committee that is in charge of state legislative races has also seen record fundraising. They've raised over $70 million this cycle, which is just shattering previous marks for that group. So the money is certainly coming in, and I think attention is starting to shift, but probably as a result of a lot of that money in these final few weeks, there will be more eyes on these races.
Republicans control 30 of these state legislatures, Democrats 17, 3 have split control. Why are Republicans so much better at this than Democrats?
Well, part of this kind of dates back to how Republicans under Karl Rove really focused at the state level. They sought to take over governorships and state legislatures in the late 2000s as a way to prepare for the 2010 redistricting cycle. And after significant victories in 2010 as part of the Tea Party wave, a backlash to early Obama policies, Republicans won a ton of state legislative races across the country. And then they got to draw the maps in many of these states, setting state legislative districts. So you had states like Wisconsin, where Republicans had basically guaranteed themselves control of the state legislature, even when Democrats won statewide. When Scott Walker lost, Republicans held both the House and the Senate and the state legislature by significant margins. That's starting to change because of the 2020 redistricting cycle. There were some changes, but Republicans invested early and often into state legislative races in the past 20 years or so. And they've been able to keep their voters more engaged there too. Democrats are much more of a presidential year turnout.
Yeah. It's amazing when you think about the Gingrich Revolution in '94, the project that you described at the state level, and the conservative effort to overturn Roe. They've had a pretty good long-term strategy for those things. Quickly, Nick, before we leave, the independent state legislature theory, is that turning out Democrats in any way that is particularly noticeable at these local levels?
It's such a, I think, cerebral and conceptual argument that hasn't, really received a ton of media attention yet, but also hasn't really trickled down to voters. And I think we're seeing this with a lot of issues surrounding democracy and, those who are trying to cast doubt and undermine faith in our elections. It's not really registering with voters yet this cycle, with inflation and the economy really taking top billing, and then the Dobbs decision and access to abortion really animating a lot of Democrats. These issues around democracy have kind of fallen back a little bit. Now, when I was on the trail in Michigan in these state legislative races, the candidates would sometimes bring it up and voters would recognize, oh, this is a critical issue, or yes, I've heard about that, or thank you for telling me. But it's certainly not, say, rising to the top to compete with either abortion or economic issues.
All right, Nick Corasaniti, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.